before the board.
Thank you, Commissioner. The first matter before the board today is 20-001. Here, the board is being asked to approve 2 notices of investigation to investigate potential violations of subsections D, E, and 9-22.6A5 of the local government ethics law.
Do we have any questions on that one? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Duraco and Mr. Jackson. Ms. Suarez.
Yes.
Mr. Duraco.
Yes.
Mr. Close.
Yes.
Mr. Avery.
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. The next matter before the board is 19-013. At this time, the board is being asked to modify the OAL initial decision as outlined in the final agency decision. This includes modifying the facts and legal conclusions, but upholding the finding that the accused did not violate the local government ethics law because he reasonably relied on the advice of counsel.
Any questions on this one? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Rodriguez and Mr. Avery. Ms. Suarez.
Yes.
Mr. Duraco.
Yes.
Mr. Close.
Yes.
Mr. Avery.
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez
Yes.
and Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Motion approved.
The last matter before the board today is the 2024 FDS enforcement. At this time, the board is being asked to waive the fine for a failure to file a 2024 FDS by 92 LGOs who either had general excuses or have held multiple positions, and to rescind the violations for a total of 126 LGOs who were deceased or who were found in violation due to clerk error. The board is being asked to acknowledge the payment of the fine by 182 LGOs.
Are there any questions on this one? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Mr. Close and Mr. Avery. Ms. Suarez.
Yes.
Mr. Duraco.
Yes.
Mr. Close.
Yes.
Mr. Avery.
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez
Yes.
and Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Commissioner, that concludes the ethics portion.
Thank you very much. As we move on to the applications portion of the agenda, I'm just going to remind everybody to please make sure that you remain muted to eliminate any unnecessary background noise. If you are joining us by audio only, you can use *6 to both mute and unmute the call as well. As each applicant appears to testify, I'm just going to ask that you please turn your camera on and speak up so that when your application is called, your image will populate on the screen, permitting us to get you sworn in prior to any testimony being received. The first applicant appearing before the board today is the Township of South Brunswick. I know we are a little early, but I wanted to see if that applicant is ready.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to have each person present for this application, if you could please just state your name and title for us. That's going to help populate your image, and then we'll get you all sworn in.
Sure. My name is Samantha Rampacek. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for South Brunswick Township.
Thank you.
And my name is Charles Carley. I'm the mayor of South Brunswick Township.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good morning. Good morning. Brian
Good morning.
Bidlack, the Township Manager for South Brunswick.
Thank you, Mr.
Good
Bidlack.
morning. I'm Scott Cleland. I'm the auditor for the Township of South Brunswick. Good morning.
Thank you.
I'm
Does
Joe
that round us
Serrano.
out?
I'm Joe
Oh, no,
Serrano,
okay.
financial consultant from Holman Frainie Allison for the Township of South Brunswick.
Hi, Mr.
Thank you,
Sarno.
Director. Hello.
Anybody else we're missing? Okay, then let's get you guys sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
Okay, who's going to lead us on the application today?
I will start. Thank you very much for your time. So we've had a few issues that have caused us to be in this predicament that we are in for our budget this year. The first one is a water moratorium that was placed on the township back in April of 2023. So this led to us not being able to collect as many permits and fees as we had anticipated. So for the uniform construction code fees, we were about 1.8 million less than anticipated. And for water connection fees, we were about 1.2 million less than anticipated. So unfortunately, this put a big hindrance on our budget. And also, since then, the water moratorium has been lifted, but this really did impact what we collected last year and what we can anticipate to collect this year. We also had an affordable housing litigation that was about $2 million. And unfortunately, this needs to fully be shown in this year's budget because it was missed in our 2021 audit and it was not put in every subsequent budget since then, unfortunately, based on error from a previous CFO. So we have to raise the full 2 million in this budget, which that is really hurting us. Also, we've had high employee turnover in the finance department the last several years due to retirements, illness. We've just had multiple CFOs and multiple vacant positions. I was hired in December of 2023, so almost a year now. And since then, we have a fully staffed finance department, which is a big help. These staffing issues that we had led to poor record keeping and extreme delay in executing our financial documents. Our audits have been years behind. Our 2022 audit just got completed a couple months ago. Bank reconciliations were not done until well past the month end. And these delays in the financial statements and the financial reporting meant that any errors that we found could not be fixed in a timely manner. By the time we found them, sometimes years had passed. So by the time we go back to fix them, it's almost too late. And this cycle has led to multiple over expenditures, and the lack of financial controls have put overspending at the forefront. However, now we've really fixed a lot of these issues. Like I said before, the water moratorium has been lifted, and already this year we've collected well over what we collected last year in fees for the Uniform Construction Code and for water connection. Also, all of our financial documents are complete and up to date. All the bank recs are completed up until now, which is something that hasn't been done in quite a few years. And our audit is on track to be completed within the next month or so. So the fact that it will be done before the year close is just a huge milestone for the township. Also, we have put strict spending controls, and we've implemented these to prevent over expenditures. Also, we've put a hiring freeze on so that we're not, so that we could save on employee salary costs and to just help rein our budget back in. The affordable housing litigation, that $2 million is now completed. That won't need to be in the budget ever again. And all of these solutions are not just temporary fixes. We're really trying to make long-term strides at the township and get back on track to have strong financial health. And so really myself and management, the elected officials, we all have the mindset that we really need to hone in and to keep these financial procedures in place so that we can continue this well into the future. And all of these, plus we have a lot of pilot programs that are on the horizon that are really going to benefit us. You know, we could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Just right now, we're just trying to fix some of the issues that have happened in the past from previous employees.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, if I,
Thank
Go
you.
I
ahead,
just would
Mr.
like to, oh, thank you, Commissioner. I would just like to reiterate what Samantha says. We have certainly put in several measures to control our spending this year. As Samantha mentioned, we have initiated hiring freezes. We are analyzing every expenditure that the town is doing. And we have, as Samantha said, we did have some personnel issues. We have completely fixed that now. We believe that we are completely on the right path in regards to that, as well as the restrictions that we have in place. So I just wanted to reiterate that with Samantha had said. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I open it up to any comments or questions from the board, Mayor, I know you're with us. I wasn't sure if there was anything in particular that you would like to add.
Well, just briefly, in terms of the governing body, which is a legislative body, the Faulkner form, we've supported our professionals when they give us advice. I can't purport to be an expert in municipal budgeting, but if Mr. Bidlack and Ms. Rampacek are telling us to take a tablespoon of cod liver oil, we're going to take a tablespoon of cod liver oil, and that's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before I jump in, I'm going to just open it up to see if there are any other questions or comments from other members of the board.
Commissioner, I just want to say I want to commend the CFO for the good description of the situation, what's occurred, what the positives they're looking forward to staffing. I'm glad to hear those measures are in place and the measures they've apparently are implementing in conjunction with the division. Concerned about over years that these problems developed over several years with professionals and staffing issues, but it appears now that they've got putting things in place to address those things. I want to give her credit for taking the accountability and addressing those issues with the township. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, barring any other questions or comments, the only one that I just wanted to put a finer point on is I know that the township has applied this year for the transitional aid program. I know you were awarded some funding through that program. And I think that this is just going to be an opportunity for us to make sure that the division also, the other side of the division being financial regulations, has a good feel for what is going on in the township. It opens up those lines of communication a little bit more deeply so that we can make sure that we understand where it is that South Brunswick is moving, what direction they're moving in, and how we can be helpful and supportive in that and making sure that we're building capacity where it needs to be. It sounds like the township's on the right path, and I think this is just going to be one more support to make sure that it stays on that path. So wanted to make sure that that was also on the record for the board members. I know that was something that was also taken into consideration. I think it just lends a little bit of comfort to making sure that things are moving in the right direction, since it's not that common. I think they were necessary in their own right for why we had 3 applications in the last 4 years regarding surplus and deficit. And so I think that the plan sounds like it's in a good place, and this will just reinforce that. So just wanted to make sure that was on the record as well. Barring any other questions or comments, I will move ahead and ask for a motion to approve the raising of the deferred charge for the deficit in operations in an amount of $1,777,256.25.
So
I'll
moved.
move the second.
I have Mr. Jackson and Mr. Avery moving in a second. Ms. Suarez,
Yes.
Mr. Duraco,
Yes.
Mr. Close,
Yes.
Mr. Avery,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
yes,
and Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you all. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your time and everything. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you. The next applicant appearing before the board today is the municipality of Princeton.
Morning, Director. Matt Jessup, McManaman, Scotland and Bauman.
Good morning, Mr. Jessup. Mr.
I'm
Jessup,
Bernie Hustovic. I'm the administrator here in Princeton. Good morning, Director.
good morning.
And Director, in addition to Bernie, I believe we should have Council President Mia Sachs on as well. Maybe, hopefully.
Councilman, if you can hear us, you might just be muted. If you want to just verify that you're no longer muted and then just speak up so that we can get your image populated.
Bernie, do you have can you maybe ping her and just see if the Council President's?
I will do that. Let me.
Matt, it's Steve Malenik. I'm just observing, but I just texted her.
Oh, great. And Director, we have Steve Malenik, lawyer from Greenbaum.
But
on
I'm
with us
just
as well.
So Mia just texted back.
And apparently
that
just
says
observing.
She's waiting
We'll
for
see.
others to join.
So she believes she's in the lobby. Is that accurate?
Yeah, she says she's waiting for others. It says she's waiting for others to join.
Then she might be in our pre-meeting instead of the board meeting.
Okay, let me send her the right link.
You thought you were going to start early, Director. Nice try.
See, best laid plans.
Right. Yep, looks like she's coming in now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Sorry about that.
Oh,
I was in a
there
meeting,
we
but it was
go.
not this meeting.
That's okay.
All
That's
good,
okay.
Council President. Thanks for joining us. So, Director, just again, real quick, briefly, Matt Jessup, McManaman, Scotland and Bauman, bond counsel to Princeton. We have Council President Mia Sachs with us. We have Princeton Administrator Bernie Hustovic with us, and we have Steve Malenik from Greenbaum. And so Bernie and the Council President will need to be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, Mr. Jessup, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. So good morning, everyone. This is an application by Princeton pursuant to NJSA 48-2-7D and 2-11C in connection with the waiver of a portion of the required down payment on a bond ordinance that appropriates $50 million and authorizes the issuance of $49.5 million in bonds and notes to provide for the acquisition of property and various capital improvements to that same property. Princeton has a really unique and exciting opportunity here. It's trying to undertake what is really a once in a several generations project by acquiring the former Westminster Choir College campus. The campus is approximately 23 acres. It's located in the heart of the municipality. And importantly, it's partially surrounded by Princeton's existing high school, middle school, and sports campus. I say important because Princeton is experiencing significant residential growth resulting from all of the new residential units constructed and being constructed in satisfaction of Princeton's constitutional obligation to provide affordable housing. And Princeton is welcoming and embracing that growth. But it does mean that municipal services and school services need to be expanded. So given its size, location, the existence of several existing buildings that were previously used for education and administration, this campus is the perfect solution for Princeton. Now, unfortunately, and as we all know, nothing big is ever easy, right? That's okay. The Westminster campus was acquired by Rider University about 30 years ago, and Rider was using it as a second campus to its main campus in Lawrenceville, just 6 or 7 miles down the road. Rider closed the campus in 2016, actually effectively 2020, as a result of a fiscal stability effort that the university needed to undertake. In 2018, Princeton Seminary filed a lawsuit claiming that it had an interest in the campus, a lawsuit that the state attorney general's office is a party to. And in short, Princeton Seminary, well, really what's at heart with this of the litigation is a 1935 deed restriction that says the property reverts to the seminary if it stops being used to educate religious choral students. Following that, 2 additional lawsuits were filed in 2018 and 2019 by a combination of students, faculty, former board members, alumni, donors, seeking to block Rider's sale of the property, which at one point was going to be to a Chinese construction company. That deal fell through. So we have these ongoing suits, right? And Rider can't afford to keep the campus, but there are lawsuits trying to block the sale. The education of choral students has been moved to the other location. People want the education to continue at the campus. We have congressmen writing letters to the governor's office. We have the attorney general's office issuing multiple reports, and on and on and on. So Princeton's proposal is to step in and acquire the property, either by settlement amongst all the parties or ultimately by eminent domain if necessary. Either way, the litigation gets resolved, or there'll be residual claims about money that we won't be involved in. But importantly, the property gets restored to a productive, vibrant, and for Princeton, much needed use. We are proposing to acquire the property for $42 million, which is based on a spring 2024 appraisal at the same amount, with an additional $8 million going towards improvements needed to commence reuse of the campus and the existing buildings. The 5% down payment requirement is $2.381 million. And we are proposing to make a $500,000 down payment under the ordinance, which is essentially the remaining available amount that Princeton has in its 2024 capital improvement fund. Unfortunately, Princeton really couldn't plan more, as we didn't know until recently that there was an opportunity to purchase the property, which is obviously not uncommon with property acquisition, nor did we know the cost until we got the appraisal in the spring. And in light of ongoing litigation, confidential discussions amongst the parties, we couldn't come out and just add X amount into a capital improvement fund without having a discussion of why, which we couldn't really do until effectively we introduced the bond ordinance and made this whole thing public. So as the board I know is well familiar with, when we're looking at a waiver request like this, we look at whether the project will adversely impact the credit rating of the municipality or reduce its ability to pay its debt service or provide government services. And of course, Princeton is a fiscally conservative, storied, AAA rated town. So we would suggest that those issues aren't really at play here. But certainly, we also need to be comfortable that the project is in the public interest and for the betterment of the residents of Princeton. So in closing, I would like to ask Council President Sachs to talk about the opportunities that this passion project provides to the municipality and generation of residents to come in furtherance of that sort of tenet that this project is really for the betterment of the residents of Princeton.
Thanks, Matt. So you described it as the perfect solution, and I just wanted to add that it's actually the only solution. You also mentioned a sports campus, and I would love to know where that is.
Well, I know where the football field is behind the high school. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm teasing you. We would love to have a sports campus, but
Right.
that speaks to a real lack of recreational facilities that we have. And as you referenced, municipal facilities, post-consolidation, our staff are squeezed into one building. Our public works staff have been working for more than almost 5 years out of trailers. We and as you also mentioned, Princeton in the past few years is complying with its third round affordable housing settlement. I'm not proud of the fact, and it was before I was on council, that the town fought its obligation for a very long time. The current governing body has reversed that and has embraced our obligation and expanded it. We're excited about the fourth round, but we are growing because we are not only complying with 20 years of an obligation within less than 3 years, and Princeton is growing by more than 12% over a 3-year period, but we are starting in the fourth round. And all of this residential growth involves, sorry? Oh, I think that's somebody else. Yeah. All of this residential growth requires additional public facilities to accompany all of that. I'm so sorry. Is that somebody else talking to me?
I think they've been muted, so I think it's background.
Okay. If someone has a question and I missed it, just ask it again. I couldn't hear completely. So at any rate, as I was saying, our schools at the point of settlement for the third round were at capacity. We have a desperate need to expand our school facilities to accompany to provide what is, as you mentioned, there's a constitutional obligation for towns to provide their fair share of housing, and for schools, they have a constitutional obligation to provide a free and appropriate education for everyone that walks through their doors. I know that those are separate obligations, but as municipal officials in Princeton, we are constantly thinking of in a holistic way of the well-being of our town as a whole, and we don't just want to welcome people and put them into, give them a roof over their head. They also need to have the free and appropriate education. So that is really why this property is unique, because it's situated right in the center of town, adjacent to our high school and middle school.
Excuse me, Nick, can we ask somebody to mute? It's really inconsiderate for the council president.
Yeah, there are conversations. We're trying to mute them as they're going along, but I do agree with you, Mr. Jackson. If you are not part of this application, kindly mute your mics.
Is my mic still on?
You're still on, yeah.
Okay, great. Guess I'm still part of this application. I didn't get gonged yet. That's good. Okay, so anyway, we desperately need this. And I think what's particularly and acutely painful for us is that this property is sitting empty and deteriorating. There are a few groups like Music Together and a conservatory orchestra that has, been occupying some small space of that for a long time, and we anticipate that those groups would have the opportunity to continue. But this is a massive property in the center of town, which is just deteriorating. I live a few blocks away from this. I walk through it every day, and it's very sad. It had an amazing history. We wish that the town wishes that Ryder and Westminster and the seminary and that everyone involved with this property would have had, a better success. But I guess the reality is that in 2024, evangelical choral music is not a booming business the way it might have been 100 years ago. But we do have pressing public needs in Princeton for our students, for our residents, recreational, educational, for our staff. And this opportunity arose through, as was mentioned, a very complex and precarious set of discussions among the parties, most of which we were not involved with because we were not involved in the court process. But, you know, we expressed our interest and they had to negotiate with one another. And, you know, as Matt mentioned, you know, the governor's office, the attorney general's office, there's been a lot of involvement because it involves around the state, because it involves, you know, really, you know, large institutions like Ryder and several other institutions of higher learning. At any rate, that process will, you know, play out in the way it is, but we are very confident that we can purchase it using either through, you know, negotiated purchase or through using eminent domain. And then the courts will decide who gets the money, when, and how. But in the meantime, Princeton can move forward expeditiously, and we really have no time to lose with, you know, the fourth round, just as we all know, just about to gear up. And we need to start planning for how we're going to incorporate this property into to meet the needs of our residents. So I'm happy to answer any other questions, but, you know, when Matt said it's a passion project, it is, it really is. We feel completely invested in the success of this project, and we know that it's critical for our town. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Council President. Director, lastly, as you sort of hinted at earlier, obviously we had the opportunity to have this discussion through a pre-meeting. Just want to point out that that's always appreciated. It was valuable for us, and we appreciate your time, Nick's time, in connection with the pre-meeting we had in connection with this application. And with that, we'll turn it back to you and the board for any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jessup. Firstly, I'm just going to open it up to other board members to see if there are any questions or comments they'd like to raise.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do have some concerns that I'd like to bring forward. First, let me say that I think that I would describe this probably even more generously to say this might be like a once in an eternity opportunity. So I fully appreciate it and support it in that regard. And as a side note too, I'm a Princeton University graduate, so I have roamed those streets many times and appreciate the beauty of the area. And I probably have been to Hoagie Haven more times than I needed to, but that's another story. But that said, I have a concern about the incorporation of the 5% into a longer term financing. I mean, if we were going to do this, and I don't mean this in any other way, but just sort of cleanly, you could have appropriated it in the 24, but I know you didn't have the money to do it, so that wasn't open to you. You could have done an emergency and then paid for it in 2025, or perhaps even push this off for a couple of months and incorporate it into your, you know, budget and your 2025 budget. So I think that there are opportunities there to address this more traditionally, but so I appreciate some of the concerns that have been raised about just what that means, but and I know that would mean a tax increase just for this. I think probably about 3 or 4%, and I understand that it's significant too. So, but I do have those concerns, and but I'm moved by the enormity of the opportunity to make this happen. And at some level, I can almost rationalize it by saying that it's facilitating an opportunity to do not only some public uses, but as you mentioned, some schools for the schools and for perhaps even affordable housing and other housing, maybe some senior housing or something like that down the road. So this is at some level, I think if we were to approve this, that may be some sense of acclamation or approval or something of the intent of what you're trying to do. But from a conservative financial standpoint, I do have reservations about incorporating this into a longer term financing. But I'll stop there.
So, Mr. Jackson, if you'd like, I'll just just make a couple of comments. I appreciate all of those concerns because, quite frankly, this group had those discussions, right? We talked about all of those things. So they were equally on our radar as they are on yours. I think the challenge to adding money into the 2024 budget, the timing of when the budget was adopted versus when we had an appraisal versus when we knew how much we would have to put aside, when we knew we could talk about it to the public, because otherwise the capital improvement fund would look, woefully out of proportion to prior years. We'd have to justify that to the public, right? That at the end of the day wasn't really an opportunity for us. I agree. One option that we certainly discussed is doing an emergency this year and raising all of the balance of it, the $1,881,000 in next year's budget as a deferred charge. I think there are two issues we talked about that. One, as I understand it, I think some of that ends up being an appropriation cap issue in terms of what ends up being inside the cap, this 3% limit, and outside the cap. That may have been complicated, but two, and I think maybe you were hinting at it, I feel like sort of foundationally, as to use your words, once an eternity project, the idea of having to raise that much money with 1 year's taxpayers when this is going to last 50, 100 years, when the flip side is about $33,000 a year in debt service on that $1,881,000 over 25 years. It just felt like that's a fair, in the bigger context, sort of a fairer allocation of cost across the users for something that is so massive, right? Repaving roads, I get it. We're doing that all the time. So everybody's always paying for that. But this is such a unique circumstance that at the end of the day, we thought the additional $33,000 a year approximately of debt service on that $1,881,000 lack of down payment, if you will, was a fairer sort of spreading out of the cost as opposed to hitting next year's taxpayers only for such a large amount for such a unique project. As for 2025, I'd sort of defer a little bit to Princeton and maybe Steve Malenik, but obviously between just property acquisition, being timely and trying to end 6+ years of litigation, I think we feel like now is the moment. So trying to wait to get into next year's budget might overall jeopardize the bigger picture transaction, which obviously we certainly don't want to even remotely entertain. So I just wanted to lay out our thought process, because we did go through all the same thoughts that you had, and at least put on the record why we chose the path that we chose, for whatever that's worth.
Thanks, Matt.
I'm sorry, Matt, I don't know if Steve is on the call. Were you asking him to speak to this?
No, I think at the moment, I would sort of defer back to the director as to whether she or any of the other board members had any questions for us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Matt.
Go right ahead, Mr. Bliss. Go right ahead.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner. Matt, yeah, I appreciate your comments. I want to echo Mr. Jackson's comments. My colleague had the same concerns, and I appreciate you addressing them, saying that the group looked at that as part of it. And I understand the position about the spreading it out. I think I still think the 5% should be more of an operational cost. But I understand the circumstances you're describing, and certainly the opportunity here is a tremendous one for the community, and that's the overriding factor for me. But still, I would agree with Mr. Jackson. I would have been happy to see more of the 5%, not all of it included, rather than the waiver. But I do understand the position of the 10 and trying to spread it out. But I do think that I would have preferred that.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay. I think the only thing that would be helpful from my perspective, obviously, as Mr. Jessup mentioned, the pre-meeting was helpful to kind of get a handle on what this project was and would be, especially for Princeton. Hearing Mr. Jackson's comments, a little bit of Mr. Close's comments, I guess what might be helpful for my edification and maybe the other board members too would just be I understand where we are currently with the proposed path for financing. Are there pitfalls for going any other way that made it clear that this was not just, as Mr. Jessup said, I think the perfect solution, but as the council president said, the only real solution. So could we maybe discuss that a little further?
I'll do just say that we were, this was because it's so legally fraught. We had no idea when the process of discussions were between the other parties. And it could have happened now, or it could have happened next year, but we were essentially, under a gag order, and that, that it was just so confidential. And we, have the court process is just this opportunity through a variety of legal complexities that's, beyond our scope here. The opportunity has arisen now. We didn't have much advance notice, but I do know that it's like either we move on it now, or I think that we will lose it. I do know that, and that's why. I mean, it certainly would have been my preference to go with an emergency appropriation. I made that clear, and because of the timing constraints and because of the unique situation, that's why we're here before you today. And I think I really understand what the people have spoken. I don't know if you're also municipal officials, but that would have been my preference. But this is, sometimes life does not happen in an ideal way, and this is the option before us. We've introduced and passed the ordinance to acquire, and this hearing is spaced. We extended the hearing for the bond ordinance which is on Monday, so that we could fit this in. And I was concerned that adding this would blow up the entire process, which would be really tragic for Princeton. But we just didn't have any other choice, and so that's why we are here and I understand the concern about the cost, but the larger cost to the community of having to find and buy land and build schools in places on the outskirts of town, as opposed to integrating it all in one campus where our students are already going to school. I mean, the circulation implications, the infrastructure implications, the cost to the town of losing this opportunity is immense and far more financially damaging, egregious, and really would be very tragic over the long term. So, as I said, this is where we find ourselves, and I'm sure we all in our individual lives often find ourselves in situations that we're doing the best we can with circumstances that we couldn't plan everything out ideally the way we would have hoped, but we have to do the best for our families, and in this case, for me, it's my municipal family. So.
Thank you very much. One other question that I have that might help just to put some of the financing into perspective too. And I don't know, if this is really for the business administrator, but that $30,000 that we're kind of talking about here, what does that actually translate to as the additional debt service for your residents?
So, Director, that is the debt service number, right? So what we did was, since if we had put a full 5% down, we would have added $1,881,000 in cash down payment. Instead, we're proposing, obviously, that will end up being financed, right, as part of the long-term financing of this long-term capital project. That $1,881,000 over 25 years I think we did it at 3.5%, is $33,000 a year in total debt service, right? Principal and interest to repay $1,881,000 over 25 years on a $36.7 million budget. So what is that to the average taxpayer? I don't know. It has to be a nominal amount in light of the tax bill. That's sort of, I think, the point that such a small amount of additive cost spread out over the users over the next 25 years feels like a fairer way to apportion such a big project, as opposed to putting all of that on this year, or which we couldn't do, but next year's taxpayers all at once, again, perhaps somewhat inside the cap, constraining us, despite how much money we could raise, and some outside the cap.
Yeah, no, I think what I was trying to get at there, Mr. Jessup, was just the difference in the tax impact on the residents with the $30,000 a year versus 1.8 million over a 1-year period. But fair that, that's not at your fingertips. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to ask.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Council President, this usually doesn't happen very often, so I apologize because this has happened quite frequently with your application today, but it is actually a rarity. I always give instructions at the beginning that everybody needs to remain muted until it's their time for their application. So
I think I was just talking about how life doesn't go as planned, not even.
That's exactly right.
Meetings. What can I say?
Exactly right. So hearing no additional questions, do we have a motion to approve the waiver of down payment?
I would make that motion. Second.
Ms. Rodriguez and Mr. Avery seconding. Ms. Suarez.
Yes, and I just want to state that I think this project seems wonderful. I think as the council president stated, in a perfect world, it might have been wonderful to do it a slightly different financing mechanism, but certainly don't want to put a kink into the works to make sure that this is actually accomplished for the municipality.
Mr. Duraco.
Yes.
Mr. Close.
Yes.
Mr. Avery.
Yes, and I want to thank the council president for her explanation of the approach the town has taken. It's a unique opportunity. Good luck.
Thank you.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Yes.
And Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Okay, motion is approved.
Great. Thank you all very much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Best of luck with the project.
Thanks.
Okay, then we will continue moving along. The next applicant appearing before the board today is the Atlantic County Improvement Authority. Do we have Mr. Edmonds with us?
Yes, good morning, Commissioner and board members. How are you?
Good morning. I've been better, as you can probably hear, but doing okay.
Yeah. So, Commissioner, I also have with us today the authority's comptroller, Jessica Wheely, Director of Community Development, Bob McGuigan, and our loan specialist, Kevin Burns.
Wonderful. If everybody could just introduce themselves quickly so we can get you populated on the screen and we'll get you sworn in.
Good morning, Jessica Wheely, Comptroller.
Good morning, Bob McGuigan, Director of Community Development.
Thank you. Was there anybody else, Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Kevin Burns, loan specialist.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
All right, Mr. Edmonds, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. So for 16 years, the authority has been implementing a program to assist Atlantic City households to make the transition from renters to homeowners. Since inception of this program, we have assisted approximately 185 households. Now, the authority last appeared before the board on February 14th of this year and received approval from the board to increase the maximum purchase price limits and maximum household income to be consistent with the New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency. This raised the maximum household limit to $123,000 and the maximum home value to $481,176. The February application also included a loan forgiveness provision after 20 years and a share of appreciation, which we enacted at the suggestion of the board. Since February of this year, by raising these limits, the authority has been able to provide assistance to 17 households. Now, this application is for $1 million of luxury tax funds to refund the program and to allow the authority to continue to provide the assistance. Households that have resided as documented tenants in Atlantic City for the previous 12 months from the time of their application shall be given first preference. $30,000 or 3% of this funding will reimburse the Improvement Authority for its internal costs in preparing this application, attending the LFB meeting, preparing the requisition for funds, program implementation, initial administration, and additional accounting requirements. The balance of $970,000 is primarily to fund the household down payment program and closing cost assistance and the 20% program delivery costs.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the applicant side? Okay, I do have one question in particular just about, and I know Mr. Evans that the Improvement Authority has been working a little bit with Atlantic City on this, just to make sure that it, I guess, truly captures what it is that the city is looking to accomplish with it. Do you know what the income thresholds are going to be for this?
So the maximum household income will be $123,000.
Okay. And that is for, I'm sorry, just repeat that for me. That's for a total household income, or is that for a single earner?
That
Total
is
household.
a total household income.
Okay. All right, that was the one question that I just had that I wanted to put a finer point on. I'm going to open it up to see if there are any other questions from the board members or anyone from the public. Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion to approve the use of the $1 million in luxury tax funds for the Atlantic City Homebuyer Down Payment Assistance Fund program?
So moved.
So move.
I heard Mr. Close first. Mr. Jackson, would you like to second?
Yes.
Ms. Suarez,
Yes.
Mr. Duraco,
Yes.
Mr. Close,
Yes.
Mr. Avery,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All
Thank you
right,
very much.
best of luck. You're welcome.
Take care.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The next applicant appearing before the board today is the Monmouth County Improvement Authority. Mr. Duraco is going to be recusing from this application. Mr. Drakewitz, are you with us today?
I am here, Director. First of all, wishing you speedy recovery from your great health today. So
Thank you.
hope that will occur.
Thank you. I'm praying for no hacking fits.
Well, after hearing this application of numerous participants, that your voice may get a little worse. But if I may, Director, to begin, we have a number of people on the line here, folks from the county, as well as most if not all of the participants, which are 22 of them that are participating in the program. I'm not sure if that's this time you want to have all the folks sworn in.
Yes, let's do that so we can get started.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
If I may begin, the Monmouth County Improvement Authority proposed to issue $56 million, $56,692,931 of its bonds to be sold to the public, the proceeds of which we utilize to acquire $56,692,931 of authority notes, which will be used to permanently finance various capital items for various governmental entities in Monmouth County. In connection with the new money transaction, the 13 participants that will be participating are the City of Asbury Park, Belmar, Eatontown Sewerage Authority, Freehold Township Fire District Number 1, Township of Manalapan, Borough of Manasquan, Township of Middletown, City of Neptune, Borough of Seabright, Borough of Spring Lake Heights, the Township of Ocean Sewerage Authority, and the Borough of Union Beach. The Improvement Authority also proposed to issue bonds in amount not to exceed $32,500,000, again, which will be sold to the public, and those funds will be used to acquire authority bonds, which will be used to refund not to exceed $32,500,000 of bonds to refund various existing bonds of various governmental entities in Monmouth County. The governmental participants that will be participating in this refunding bond transaction, pursuant to which each of the participants will have at least 3% present value savings, will be the following entities: the Eatontown Board of Education, Bradley Beach, Avon by the Sea, Spring Lake, Township of Neptune, Borough of Monmouth Beach, Englishtown, Colts Neck, and Wall. These transactions, after additional review by the financial advisor and the underwriting team, will now be combined into one issue for economies of scale. In addition, these bonds will be secured by general obligation payments by each of the municipalities. And furthermore, each of these authority local unit bonds will be secured by a guarantee by the County of Monmouth. In connection with this transaction, we hereby request positive findings on the project financings, as well as positive findings in connection with each of the respective county guarantees. At this time, Director, if you'd like to hear a sampling from some of the participants or from all the participants as to what they may or may not be undertaking, or any other questions, we'd be happy to take your direction at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dragowitz. Always like to hear a quick flavoring from all the municipalities who are participating. So would very much like to hear that.
All right, we'll take a sampling if that's okay on the new money transaction first. Okay.
Please.
If the Township of Middletown's on the phone, Colleen Lapp.
Thank you, John. Yes, I'm here.
If you could just describe a little bit about the project that you're undertaking for the director.
Sure. The Township of Middletown is looking to permanently finance a little over $16 million in debt. These are for various ordinances that we've done. I always look through and I make sure I try and hold off on the debt issuance until I'm certain of the amount or more certain of the amount. So this is a little bit, I wait a few years and then I kind of package it all and do it. So for us, it's a mixture of general obligation and open space. We did a lot with tennis courts, as far as open space tennis courts, boardwalk replacement, playgrounds, field improvements. And we've done a field house and a picnic shelter. On the general obligation, there's a couple of fire trucks in there. We have a pump station that we need to redo. There's funding in there for that. There's a lot of road and drainage improvements, ADA improvements, some land acquisition. And that's kind of it. It's a lot of things bundled into one issue.
Okay, is Michael? Oh, I'm sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was just going to mention on the maturity schedule, it's a conforming maturity schedule and works well with their debt that is dropping off. So there is no tax impact in the budget to finance these projects.
Can we hear from Michael Bascom if he's available on Seabright?
Sure. Good morning. Seabright's pretty simple. It's roughly $1.2 million. It is primarily for the purchase of an aerial truck for the fire department. It's also three matching funds for three various road programs that were conducted with Transportation Trust Fund money. So this is the matching funds for that. But the bigger chunk, roughly $1 million, is for the aerial truck for the fire department. The same thing for us. It's a conforming schedule, and it is timed as other debt related to the fire department, particularly, is dropping off with this year's budget.
I'm not sure if we have a representative from the Freehold Township Fire District, since we don't do too many fire districts. Is Mike Fogarty available?
Yes, good morning. This is we've done major fire station renovations, and it was monies that were originally approved by the local finance board back in 2022. And this is to continue to pay this down.
And Freehold Township Fire District is a participant in the 2024 pooled note program that matures in March 2025. So this financing will completely take out the note. It permanently finances it for a 3-year period, so they don't have to roll over their notes each year.
And perhaps one more, for at least for now, unless the director has others. I'm not sure if Patricia Dario is around from Manalapan.
Yes, I'm here.
You just describe the projects, Pat, if you can, a little bit.
Sure. We're permanently financing 2 years worth of ordinances. They're pretty straightforward. They're road improvements, various equipment, buildings and ground improvements, and technology.
And Director, would you like to hear from any other of the new money participants, or is that a good sampling for you?
No, I think that's a pretty good sampling. Was there anybody else, Ms. Drakowitz, that you definitely wanted to highlight that might be not a usual candidate for us?
Yeah, probably one additional one if available. In terms of Ted Lewis, he's available from the Eatontown Sewer. I'm sorry, wrong one. Representative from Ocean Sewage Authority. Tim Shea. Is he around?
I believe this is Jim Fearon. We're bond counsel to the Ocean Township Sewage Authority. I believe Tim is on the line. He was on the list before. Tim, are you there? Well, perhaps not. I will answer a few questions about their application, if that would be acceptable.
Just describe the project to, if you can, Jim.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's $2.5 million in total, $1.9 million for upgrades to the authority's wastewater treatment plant, and $600,000 for upgrades to the wastewater collection system. And I don't really have any greater detail on that, but I can attempt to answer any questions. I'll also add briefly that part of this application is also the request for findings in respect of the authority bond issuances to the local authority bond issuances to the improvement authority. So that's why I think the Eatontown and Ocean Township Sewage Authority are both listed as co-applicants for this finance.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. That's correct. They're both positive findings. And with that, I'm not sure if the Eatontown, if the Ocean Township Sewage Authority can. I guess it's both, right? Ted's on both authorities, right?
That would
No.
be.
I'm sorry, this is Tim Shea from the Township of Ocean Sewer Authority.
Oh, that's right, Tim Shea. Too many Tims. Sorry. Maybe you just describe it a little bit if you can.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, we had an engineering assessment done last year of our treatment plant. We haven't had any capital upgrades in the plant for many years. And so this 1.9 million takes care of the higher priority projects that came out of the assessment. Projects including grip building, distribution chamber, and a screenings building. And then in addition to that, we have $600,000 for collection system upgrades, which includes a pump station upgrade, one of our 12 pump stations. And about 200,000 of that is for sewer main lining to take care of pretty severe I&I problems.
You know, Director, that's a sampling of larger towns, smaller towns, the fire district, and the 2 sewer authorities that are participating in the new money portion of the application.
Thank you. Mr. Drakewitz, I believe, and you could correct me if I'm wrong in looking at the application, but it sounds like this is really going to take care of almost all existing notes except for maybe 3 municipalities. Is that accurate?
Well, I'll let Heather, who has a good handle on the notes that are coming due at the end of March, as to what may be ahead for the authority as well. So Heather, if I could turn that over to you.
Yeah, so just opening the spreadsheet. So of the participants that are participating in this program, 3 entities will have notes outstanding after this issuance. That's Asbury Park, Manasquan, and Union Beach. Both Eatontown and Union Beach and Freehold Township Fire District, they are permanently financing all or a portion of their notes that are in the Monmouth County Improvement Authority pooled note program. But then Asbury Park, Manasquan, and Union Beach will have some additional notes outstanding.
And Ms. Litzbauer, what's the plan, I guess, for just the permanently financing of those? Has that conversation been had yet?
So I'll let Joanne Booz and Jennifer Edwards talk about Asbury Park, but I can answer on Manasquan. Manasquan didn't choose to permanently finance all of their notes because they have about $6,511,000 outstanding in notes after this issuance. They will have some grants coming in to pay down some of those notes, and then part of their water sewer utility, they're waiting for some debt to drop off to permanently finance either next year or in 2026.
Thank you.
And then Union Beach, I think we would need them to talk about their plan as well.
Joanne, do you want to speak on Asbury Park, or would you like me to?
You can.
Okay. The city of Asbury Park is permanently financing 1.8 million of their outstanding note, which matures in January. The city annually looks at their capital projects to see which projects are near completion or fully spent, and they look to permanently finance that. Last year, the city did do a larger permanent financing in December through the MCIA. They will look to roll notes in January for the balance and also fund some additional projects that are going to be happening in 2025. And we'll probably look to the end of next year again to see which projects are ready for permanent financing through the MCIA.
Thank you.
In other words, we'll be back, Director, on those.
Job security. And then was it Union Beach is the last one?
Yes.
Well, in
Hi,
connection
good
with
morning.
Union Beach, yeah, are you?
Yes,
you're there?
good morning, John.
Okay.
Good morning, Director. My name is Andrew Sabiga from the Borough of Union Beach. Basically, we need permanently finance all our existing notes right now. We do have one issue of bonds outstanding that come due in 2026. And once that drops off, we expect to permanently finance the rest of our notes.
Thank you. Okay.
If
Any
you'd
other
like,
questions?
Director, I could give you a little summary of the refunding transaction, since we didn't have any of those participants speak, but I can give you an overall indication of that transaction. So we're refunding 3 different series of Monmouth County Improvement Authority bonds, 2013A, 2013B, and 2014 bonds. With changing the maturity dates to have it be one series with the new money financing, it increases savings So currently net present value savings is just above $2 million, which is 6.53%. And all participants have over 3% net present value savings.
And if any of those participants drop below 3%, they would be pulled from the program, I believe.
Thank you. No, I appreciate this very much. I know this always takes a little bit of time, but I appreciate everybody's patience because I think it's important to really understand exactly how this is helping the municipalities and the other entities that are within the county's purview. Before I actually move to take a vote, I just also wanted to recognize something. So, Ms. Litzbauer, I just wanted to express the condolences of the entire board on the passing of Dennis Enright. So, to the whole NW family, to his loved ones, and all who have been impacted by his untimely passing. So, we just wanted to take a moment to recognize that because for many, especially in North Jersey, he was quite the stalwart in dealing with finances and financial advising. So, I just wanted to take a moment.
We appreciate that.
Of course. Now there's no easy way or smooth way, I should say, of segueing from that. But what I would like to do is, if there are no other questions or comments from the board, I'm going to ask for a motion to issue positive findings on the project financing and the county guarantee for this.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I heard Mr. Close with the second, so and Mr. Avery with moving it. Ms. Suarez?
Yes.
Mr. Duraco has recused. Mr. Close?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
And Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you, Director, and the rest of the commissioners, on this, on our annual program. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all. Best of luck with all the projects.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next applicant appearing before the board today is the Camden County Improvement Authority.
Good afternoon, Director. Just barely afternoon here. Jeff Winitsky from Parker McKay. We are a bond counsel to the Camden County Improvement Authority. Also on the line today is Jim Lex, who's the Executive Director of the Improvement Authority. I believe Steve Williams, who's the Chief Financial Officer of the county, is on. I'm not sure. And Joe Pelagero from Acacia, who is the county and the Improvement Authority's financial advisor. And I see Jackie Shanis is also on. She is county bond counsel. So I'll let those who are not attorneys be sworn in, and then I'll start.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do. Excellent. With that, the Improvement Authority is seeking positive findings pursuant to NJSA 4858-6 to issue two series of bonds. The first is not to exceed $9 million of its county guaranteed loan revenue bonds, county cap program, series 2024A. And the second is it's not to exceed $37 million county guaranteed loan revenue refunding bonds, county cap program, series 2024B. As the board is aware, or I'll remind them, the county has financed the cost of its capital improvement program since 1992, and the issuance of the Series A bonds is really just a continuation of that partnership. The proceeds of the Series 2024A bonds are being loaned by the Improvement Authority to the county to finance a host of capital improvements and equipment as part of the county's 2022 capital budget. For a great number of its departments. I can go through them. There's a full list attached as Exhibit A to the application, but just sort of highlight, we're doing projects for the Board of Elections, for Buildings and Grounds, the Board of Taxation, Parks, the County College, Corrections, Public Safety, the Sheriff's Office, and the Youth Center. So it's really runs the gamut for all the for a variety of the county's capital improvement equipment needs for its, like I said, for the 2022 capital budget. The 2024 B bonds, which is the refunding series, are being used to specifically refund the Improvement Authority's 2014 county cap bonds and the authority's 2015A county cap bonds. We're going to refund all or a portion of the callable outstanding maturities. The Series 2024A bonds, that's the new money portion, are expected to be issued under current market conditions in the principal amount of about $7 million or $7.5 million to mature in the years 2026 through 2038, which corresponds to the average useful life of the equipment and the improvements to be financed. And they're going to be structured to provide level debt service for the county. The Series 2024B, that's the refunding series, are expected to be issued in the principal amount of around $33 million, maturing in the years 2026 through 2040. Under current market conditions, the refunding of the 2014 bonds and the 2015A bonds is expected to generate approximately $4 million in present value saving. That's about 11% of the refunded principal. So it's a really good transaction. And the board may recall we came before you a couple of years ago and we're looking to do this on a taxable basis for the refunding. That kind of fell apart. The market moved away from us, but now we're in a current refunding situation. So the savings are pretty substantial. So we're excited to finally be able to get it done. The bonds themselves are going to be issued pursuant to a new bond resolution. The proceeds of the bonds will be loaned to the county pursuant to a loan agreement. The loan payment obligations of the county under that loan agreement will be general obligations of the county authorized pursuant to an ordinance. In addition to the loan agreement itself, the county is also going to provide its guarantee by virtue of the adoption of a separate guarantee resolution, which is the second part of why we're here today. The impact of the transaction on the budget or taxes of the county is going to be minimal. That is for two reasons. One, because the refunding is going to generate over $4 million in savings, and the new money portion of the financing is relatively small in comparison to the overall taxes of the county. So that's a summary of sort of what we're doing, why we're doing it. We've got all the relevant players, including the folks from the county here, if you have any questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reniski. I think that was pretty thorough. The only item I just would like to hone in on a little bit more just has to do with the refunding piece. In the application, it looks like the refunding is pretty significant, like the savings to be realized. With it looked though as if some of it was slightly front loaded. Would you just be able to kind of walk us through that? Was that intentional, necessary, the purpose behind that?
Front-loaded savings on the refunding. I mean, Joe, you can probably speak to, I mean, I think it's really just a function of what's callable and how it's callable and sort of the structure of the existing debt.
Yeah, it's just the timing of the transaction. It's just, you see it's the first year that's the $730,000 of savings, but all the years are uniform at about 300,000 or so, or 300,000, and drops down to like $260,000 a year. But it's really just the timing of that first year.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments from the board members? Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion to issue positive findings on the project financing and the county guarantee?
I'll move it.
Second.
Mr. Jackson moving, Mr. Avery second. Ms. Suarez,
Yes.
Mr. Duraco,
Yes.
Mr. Close,
Yes.
Mr. Avery,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
yes,
and Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
The next applicant appearing before the board today is the Burlington County Bridge Commission.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Ms. Edwards.
Hi. I believe we have Carolyn Havlick, Treasurer and CFO of Burlington County on, and Jamie Workowski, Deputy CFO of the county.
Yes, we're here. Hello.
Great. Jeff Winitsky, Bond Counsel to the county, and is Tom Hasty available?
I'm up here. Yep.
Great. Hi, Tom. I'll kick us off if it's okay, Director. So the Burlington County Bridge Commission is requesting. Oh, I'm sorry. We have to get sworn in. Sorry.
Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Ms. Edwards, the floor is yours.
The Burlington County Bridge Commission is requesting positive findings for the issuance of 72 million lease revenue bonds and notes. The county is requesting initially to fund a total of 25 million authorized by 2 lease ordinances for various county capital projects as described in the application. The plan of finance will be initially to fund the projects in short-term notes until such time as the projects are complete or close to completion. The renewal of the notes will be done in accordance with NJSA 40A5A-24. And the BCBC and county will return to LFB for approval of the issuance of bonds once they're ready to permanently finance. I also would like to note the Bridge Commission has short-term notes maturing in December, which we will be packaging this note transaction with that one as one issuance through the Bridge Commission. So this will not be an additional standalone note. It will be packaged up together with that other December maturity. At this time, we can take any questions regarding the projects or the plan of finance.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from anybody else on the applicant side? Okay. Then I will open it up to see if there are any questions or comments from the board members. Okay. I do not have any questions. Ms. Edwards, I think the application was pretty thorough. Appreciate the explanation, having everybody here in case there were any additional questions. So I'm going to ask for a motion to issue the positive findings in an amount not to exceed $72 million.
Make the motion.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Duraco moving, Mr. Jackson second. Ms. Suarez,
Yes.
Mr. Duraco,
Yes.
Mr. Close,
Yes.
Mr. Avery,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck. The next applicant up here before the board today is the Trenton Housing Authority.
Good morning, Director. Christopher Langhart from McManaman, Scotland and Bauman on this application.
Hello.
Or you're feeling under the weather?
We'll give it away.
You seem as cheerful as ever.
Trying to keep up a good disposition.
Good, good. We're getting towards the end here. Director, we are making the application on behalf of the Housing Authority of the City of Trenton for an amount not to exceed $27 million. I believe we have on the line from the authority, Christy Huff and Rick Giannetti. And I'm hopeful that one of the phone numbers that I can't identify is Mark Hall from the developer. But if we could have everyone identify themselves and have them sworn in, that would be great.
Hi, Christy Huff, Trenton Housing Authority, Director of Redevelopment.
Hey, Ms. Huff.
Hi, Rick Giannetti from the Brook Group. I'm the Housing Authority's project development consultant.
Thank you, Rick. Do we have Mark Hall on the call as well? Sounds like we might
I'm
not.
George. Yeah, I'm George. So I'm with Greater Trenton. I work with Mark.
Oh, George, okay. Are you able to speak about the project? I thought Mark was
I
going
could.
to, but, okay.
Yes, I know Mark, I had communicated with Mark earlier. He said he was trying to get in. I could try to text him, but why don't we continue to respect everyone's time?
Yeah, if we can have everyone sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Do.
Thank you, Director, and thank you all the members and staff of the Local Finance Board for hearing this application. Director, you have before you an application for the issuance of not to exceed $27 million in tax exempt bonds pursuant to the local authority's fiscal control law, section 40A:5A6, and the redevelopment and housing law, section 40A:12A-29. The project is going to involve the issuance of the $27 million in not to exceed tax exempt bonds as a means of funding a total project cost of $42 million. The money will be part of a low income tax credit financing that will take an abandoned piece of property in Trenton right now. It's a vacant structure. Used to be a Holiday Inn, then it was converted to office space, and now it's vacant. The developer is going to take that and turn it into 170 units of affordable housing. And we are here for the positive findings on both those things. And with that, I will turn it over to George or perhaps Mark to discuss the project in greater detail.
Has Mark Hall joined by chance? Okay. No, happy to speak about the project in his absence. And thank you for hearing us here. It's an exciting project. As our attorney had mentioned, it started off in 1969 as a Holiday Inn hotel and associated amenities. And over time, it evolved into a partial hotel and then into an office space and ultimately 100% office. And you can imagine with the COVID and the pandemic, the issues associated with trying to have an office building filled. And so it failed as a hotel, it failed as an office building, and transforming this building into a vibrant residential community at affordable rental rates is the best option. The developers intend on creating 170 residential units, together with restoring the swimming pool, a jacuzzi, have a fitness center. So it would be highly amenitized, affordably priced housing. And so the idea is to move this forward in conjunction with the Housing Authority, and the Housing Authority acting as a conduit issuer for the bonds during the construction period, at which time they'd be taken out with permanent financing. The entire time it's fully cash collateralized, and there's no full faith and credit required by the Housing Authority, and there's no other guarantees associated by the Housing Authority. And with significant fees generated for the Housing Authority, which is in line with their mission.
George, is there a reason using the Housing Authority instead of HMFA?
Yes, a matter of fact, when council and administration approved moving forward with the project, the idea was try to minimize the income restrictions, because the desire for Trenton is to have more market rate housing rather than less, and to have the 15-year income restriction, minimum income restriction period for the project. So that's really the protocol for moving forward with the Housing Authority.
If there's nothing else, George, then we can happy to take questions from the commissioners, if any.
So just one question that I think piggybacks off of what you two gentlemen were just speaking about. Is there going to be any income restriction on it from the outset? Maybe not for a set period of time, but what is the plan for that?
Yes, it'd be 100% affordable from the outset. And at that point, again, as we've been saying, it's going to be highly amenitized, affordably priced, but from day one.
Okay. And then so once the first set of tenants should leave, then it would be kind of up to the market to dictate what the rents would be going forward. Is that what the plan is?
That's right. And no one be evicted just because at the end of 15 years, there's certainly no intention to do that, but rather have the opportunity to convert to market at some point in the future.
Okay. And then, so I guess, is there a plan or will there be a plan put into place so that if rent increases are over and above what some of the affordability would be for the existing tenants, what would be the plan to, I guess, either move them out or find alternative housing, or are there going to be some sort of restrictions put in place so that if they are still renewing their rental agreement, that there would be some sort of protections and like a max percentage of increase year over year?
Right. Well, a couple of things on that. So again, no one would be evicted from the property if they continue to renew at that point. And again, they would continue to be covered by Trenton has its own rent control in place and limits on any increases in rent anyway. And so they certainly abide by that in addition to.
And Mr. Soa, I don't know what it is. Do you know what the rent restriction increase is for Trenton?
Oh, they think they believe it, they tie it to inflation, but I saw something recently. They're contemplating no more than 4%, just given the relatively recent spikes in inflation. So they're trying to modify it, as I understand it. I don't believe that's in place yet, but they had some inflationary guidelines, but they're talking about putting a cap in to protect for further protections for the tenants.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And is the housing authority itself utilizing any of its borrowing capacity for this?
They do not have. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, those are my questions. I'm going to open it up to see if there are any other questions or comments from the board members or anyone from the public. Okay. Well, then hearing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to issue positive findings on the project financing in an amount not to exceed $27 million.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Duraco, seconded by Ms. Rodriguez. Ms. Suarez?
Yes.
Mr. Duraco?
Yes.
Mr. Close?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
And Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
That's
George. Thank you, Christy.
Welcome.
Okay, the next applicant appearing before the board today is the Patterson City Parking Authority.
Yes, Director. Chris Langhart, McManaman, Scotland and Bauman, representing the Parking Authority. Director, we have a number of people on the line here. Manny Martinez and Tony Perez from the Parking Authority, Pete Neeson from Acacia. I think at one point we had Nellie Poe on as well. I'm not sure if she's still here. And I believe we have Tim Tracy, our parking consultant, on too. Joe Clarizio is supposed to be on. If he's here, feel free to speak up. But if not, we can go ahead and thank you, Joe. If I missed anyone else, please feel free to speak up. Hearing nothing, we can go ahead and swear them in, Director.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
I do. I do.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Langhart.
Yep. So Director, just as by way of a brief recap, we are here after having made application last month, making our presentation, and then some questions came up regarding the cost per parking space for the proposed garage, the retail portion of the proposed parking garage, and how the cost per parking space might compare against the current market rates for construction of such a garage. We did go ahead and submit a letter and an exhibit explaining these things, and I'm happy to go through it right now. But just so everybody remembers, we are asking for not to exceed $50 million in new financing under the local authority's fiscal control law, along with the city guarantee of like amount under the parking authority's law. There is a $16 million refunding component that's been approved in the past, and that really has nothing to do with the application that will be, the portion of the application we'll be speaking about now. So I will go through the answers to the questions that were asked of us. Pete is on too. We sent an exhibit to the letter that kind of works through the numbers, and Pete's happy to go through that. But just by way of refreshing ourselves, when we made the application, we came out with some back of the math calculations about what the cost per parking spot was. We didn't have our consultants on the phone with us at that time, so we went back and kind of figured it out with a clear head and, with a little bit of time on our hands. We have come to, after all our figures and calculations, we've come to the conclusion that the garage will cost about $40,000 per parking space. Originally, back in let me see here. Back in 2022, we had an actual bid for the garage, and that was in the middle of the pandemic. And that bid we all kind of felt was a favorable bid because there wasn't a lot of work going around and contractors were bidding prices aggressively. So at that point, when we received that bid, our pricing came out to about $27,000 per spot. And I believe one of the commissioners had mentioned that he was familiar with the garage that had been built during that time period, also at a cost of $27,000 per space. So we kind of were right in the ballpark during that time. Since that time, we've had inflationary costs. We've had increase in the cost of concrete precast. And as we mentioned last time, we have the cost for a sprinkler system that we had to add to the garage. So I don't want to steal Pete's thunder, but we'll go through that. And when we put all those numbers into our calculation, we come out to a cost of $40,000 per parking spot, which we feel, in talking with our project manager and our parking consultant, is right about where we need to be. What about where the market is when building a garage in the city of Patterson under the current economic climate? That cost compares favorably with what we would expect to see. And just addressing the retail portion of the garage has always been calculated at about 2.3% of the total project cost. So when we calculate that, and it's in our letter there, we come to a retail portion financing of about $685,000. So having said all those things, I think those address the three comments that we were given last time we were here: the cost per parking space, the amount of retail, and how the cost per parking space compares against current economic climate conditions. And having said that, Pete, if you want to just maybe go through the attachment and work through how we got from our project cost last time to where we are now.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. And good morning and good afternoon to everybody. Chris has stolen much of my thunder here, but the response included an attachment that addresses each of the three questions that were presented to us. And the first, Chris has gone through quickly, but essentially in the analytics contained in that part of the letter that we submitted, we're essentially showing our estimate of the calculated cost for the contractor's work for the construction of the new garage. And the first part starts from the original bid that we had received in April of 2022, still on the back end of the pandemic, and attempts to add to that estimated costs for the inclusion of the sprinkler system, estimated costs for increased precast concrete costs, and also other historical cost inflationary metrics for the Patterson area from the period of 2022 to the present, which results in a total estimated construction cost of a little less than $35 million. We are, as we've noted before, reducing the size of the facility from 865 parking spaces down to 750. Essentially, we're removing one of the floors of the parking garage, and a linear decline in the size of the pricing as a consequence of that calculates to an estimated price of just under $30 million. Our construction manager and design consultants, who are both on the phone here, had also performed an estimate of the current estimated price that we anticipate being bid at just around $30 million. So it coincides with our calculation of the escalation of the costs as well. And again, as Chris has indicated, the mathematics there of $30 million for a construction bid price over 750 spaces yields an estimated parking space cost of about $40,000. As we've indicated, and we're glad to speak to further, we think that this is consistent with what the construction costs are for a new parking facility of the size that we're contemplating. And the last component that we had spoken about was our estimate that the portion of the facility that we're building, the relatively small retail portion on the first floor, is estimated to be about 2.3% of the facility cost, which equates to about $700,000 of that $30 million. So again, as Chris has indicated, we have members of the authority on, we have our parking consultants as well, along with Chris and I, and we're certainly glad to answer any questions that the director that you may have or that any commissioner may have.
Thank you very much. I do have a couple of questions and comments, but before I get into it, I just want to open it up to the other board members to see if there are any questions or comments that they might have.
Commissioner, I'd like to thank the representatives from the Parking Authority who met with staff and I a few days ago to go through some numbers and address some of my concerns and questions. I do believe that I continue to believe, I think the number, while certainly more in line with what we expect, I think is going to be, I'm hoping that they'll be pleasantly surprised by the bidding process. And my suggestion, my advice would be to make sure that bid is robustly advertised and so forth, because I think the more you get a bunch of players, I think you're going to get a good number. Even though things have certainly picked up, there are a number of folks who that's their wheelhouse, and I think you'll get a good number if it's known and broadcast widely that you're looking for bids. So that's my only comment.
Commissioner, we share that sentiment and are also hopeful and optimistic that the estimated price as a result of the bid is better than what we're projecting. Again, this is merely an estimate at this point. We'll simply only finance that which is necessary.
No, thank you for that. I certainly support Mr. Jackson's comment there. I think that's just common sense, and I'm glad to hear that the Parking Authority also shares that ideal. It'll certainly just make it more competitive, hopefully, and that way it can drive the cost down. One of the other questions that I did have just centered around if the number that we're currently working with is about $40,000 per parking space. What are we anticipating, I guess, in revenues to be brought in per parking space? I'm just trying to see if the anticipation is it's offsetting or that it's still going to be lucrative for the Parking Authority. Just wanted to kind of understand what those figures look like.
Certainly, and Chris, maybe I'm best positioned to answer that question again.
Please, yeah.
We have prepared full projections of what the revenues and expenses for the full system look like with the inclusion of the noted Ward Street garage facility. The authority has engaged a parking consultant who prepares the parking revenue projections based upon the entirety of the assets of the parking authority. It incorporates the anticipated labor component and ongoing regularly scheduled maintenance efforts associated with it. It also then incorporates the projection of what the debt service will be on the portion of the bonds that are supported by parking revenues. Again, the $50 million not to exceed amount, $45 million anticipated sizing that Chris referenced at the beginning of his discussion. A portion of that is the parking revenue, new money bonds. A larger portion of that is the bonds that we anticipate utilizing ERG grants from the NJEDA, whose bonds will be serviced by the sale of tax credits in the future and are not needed to be supported by the parking facility itself. So the parking system will need to support the refunding bonds and the new money component of this. Within that, the calculations that we have put together, which again are somewhat still preliminary because there's a number of pieces of this that we don't have final amounts for yet, but they still do project total revenues of the facility, of the system as a whole, all of the assets, including Ward Street Garage, being in the neighborhood of $8 million in 2025 and growing thereafter as a consequence of future parking rate increases that are anticipated. You have operational expenses that are in the range of $5 million. And then debt service, which is in the neighborhood of $2 million for all of these, yielding net revenue of in excess of $1 million or slightly thereunder in the first couple of years, or a debt service coverage ratio ranging between 1.25 and about 1.6 over the first decade. And this is the information that we're going to be prepared to provide to prospective lenders here in the next month or so, as the rest of the components of the financing all come into greater clarity and hopefully consummation of some of the other actions that we need to secure from the EDA and a couple of other fronts that we're working on. But those are the rough numbers, Director, that we're looking at as far as projections for the system as a whole, which of course, these bonds are system-backed bonds. They're not backed exclusively by the revenues associated with Ward Street. All of the revenues are commingled together to service and support all of the outstanding bonds that will be under the parking authority.
And that I understand, but I guess just to boil it down to fairly simplistic numbers, do we have a sense as to what we're anticipating the revenues to look like for this garage? And is there a way to isolate it, what we think it might be per space?
Yeah, as Pete looks that up, as Pete said, we put together a pretty elaborate feasibility study because we'll have to show it to investors. So we have numbers in the aggregate, and we could probably break it down per parking spot. I'm not sure we have that particular number at hand, but maybe a little bit of simple math might be able to get us there. I don't know if we could do it on this call, but we can certainly, if you have other questions, maybe address them. And I don't know if Pete can figure it out, or we can come back to you.
I'm moving through the spreadsheets as quickly as I can here.
I will happily give Mr. Neeson a few moments because I don't want, Mr. Langhart just wanted to make sure he had his own thunder.
Yep.
And so the other question that I do have just kind of centers around what the plan is with the parking authority, who's going to be running point on this project, what the long-term plan is for overseeing this project.
Tony and Manny, you might be able to address that.
I'll defer to Paul. Allow me to introduce myself, and first of all, thank you for the opportunity to address you all. I've been with the Parking Authority now, working directly with Senator Poe and with Director Perez on this project and on several other projects as well. So, our confidence in being able to move forward, when working with our attorneys, with our consultants, with Tim, our engineer, and with Joe Clarizio, our general contractor. Obviously, Senator Poe plays a huge role in everything that we do here. But with the team that we have assembled, our confidence in our ability to move forward with this project and future projects is rather strong.
Is it ideally going to be a team effort? Is it still being calculated as to what that looks like? Is there going to be an employee in particular who's going to be overseeing this, or is it going to be potentially outsourced with some sort of outside entity? I'm just trying to get a feel for it because I hear you on that very much. Yeah. Senator Poe has always been a staunch supporter of the parking authority. She's always come before the board and really explained what it is and why it was important to get either positive findings or approvals from us. And we are all very supportive of her and keeping up positive vibes and what her next endeavors might look like. Wanted to just kind of see what the thought process might be on just planning ahead.
Yeah, so Senator Poe will continue to work on this project and with the Parking Authority as she moves forward. But once she, I'm going to speak it into existence. Once she's successful in her next endeavor, I will be running point with the rest of the team and with Director Perez on this project and future projects.
Wonderful. Okay, so that has been thought through. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
And Director, I can respond again whenever you're ready. Whenever you've.
I am ready for you, Mr. Neeson. Absolutely.
Sure. So our projections in the first full year of operations of the Ward Street Garage alone are approximately 1.5 million in revenues from the facility itself. So that makes a part of the slightly more than 8 million, which represents the full system revenues by the first year that the Ward Street Garage comes into operation. So by rough math, 1.5 million divided by 750 spaces is about $2,000 per year in revenue, which is about $160 a month per space, to give people a ballpark number of sort of what it costs to rent something a month. Of course, this isn't necessarily going to be rented out on a monthly basis. There's options associated with it, whether it's hourly, daily, or otherwise.
Of course.
See, Pete, I knew if we gave you enough time, you'd nail it, so.
Happy
I'm
to do
biting
that.
my tongue here, Chris.
Those are my questions and comments. So I'm going to open it up to see if there are any questions or comments from any other board members. I know Mr. Jackson did ask earlier. So if anybody has any questions or comments, now would be the time.
I'd like to make a comment. I want to commend Tony Perez, the executive director of the Patterson Parking Authority, on his leadership on this project. I know it's been long, it's been arduous, and it's good to see that finally it may come to fruition. I know how desperately needed this parking garage is needed in the city of Patterson, and I want to thank the professionals that have been involved in this along the way. I also want to commend Manny Martinez, who has been under Nellie Poe's tutelage for the last 2 years, and more importantly, full-time now for the last 6 months. I have great faith that you're going to move not only this project, but the many projects that that are being anticipated by the Parking Authority forward. And I just want to commend everybody on this effort.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Okay, well, if there are no additional questions or comments, I'm going to ask for a motion to issue positive findings in an amount not to exceed $50 million.
I make the motion.
Second.
I believe that was Mr. Claus seconding.
Correct.
Ms. Rodriguez moves, Mr. Claus seconds. Ms. Suarez,
Yes.
Mr. Duraco,
Yes.
Mr. Claus,
Yes.
Mr. Avery,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. On behalf
Thank
of the
you.
authority, I want to thank the board and the staff members for working with us and bearing through all these applications. It's been a tough road, but we look forward to closing this deal and getting this done. Appreciate everybody's help.
Yeah. And thank you all always. I know sometimes we've asked questions that maybe needed some time to develop the answers to. And I think I just wanted to reiterate that to what Mr. Jackson said and Ms. Rodriguez, which was essentially that the team really came together to make sure that we got the answers that we needed to be comfortable and make sure that this was going to be the right path forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Best of luck with the project.
Thank you.
Okay, the next applicant appearing before the board today is the Township of Plainsboro.
Hi, Commissioner.
Hello.
Our mayor may have some difficulty with video, but you'll be able to hear him for sure.
Okay.
Are we ready to go? Can you hear me?
You're good, Mayor. We can hear you.
Very good. Good afternoon, Director and board members. Thank you for hearing
Mayor?
our, yeah, can you
Mayor,
hear
I'm
me?
sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to make sure that we get everybody sworn in before we receive any testimony on this
Fine,
application. So
that's great.
I see you, Mayor. I see Mr. Cankbro. Do we have anybody else from Plainsboro with us today?
Chief
Yeah,
John
I'll
Swisher,
introduce-
Suffolk Clooney.
Al Steinberg.
Greg Mayer, CFO.
Chief Eamon Blanchard.
That's
Okay,
it,
great.
Commissioner.
Wonderful. Then we can get everybody sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Right.
Okay.
I can go back to good afternoon, Director and
Yes,
board
yes.
members.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for hearing our request to dissolve the Plainsboro Fire District Number 1. Before I provide some brief remarks, I want to extend my thanks to the staff at DCA for their assistance in developing the application for this solution. It's been valuable to us. I've been a member of the Plainsboro Township Committee for some 48 years, and I've been its mayor for the past 42 years. The last time I came before the local finance board was in May of 2021 to seek the board's approval to borrow some $7.8 million to satisfy a tax appeal that had been exasperated by a 10-year-long court proceedings. The board authorized a 14-year term, which was unusual for us to repay that. I'm pleased to report that we've been able to satisfy that obligation in just 3 years by a number of actions that we took to reduce the impact on our taxpayers. So we appreciated your support previously, and today I'm here to seek your approval to dissolve the Plainsboro Fire District Number 1, which was created in 1990. As you know, they have independent taxing authority, a fiduciary responsibility, and are accountable to the residents of Plainsboro, as well as to provide fire protection services. The Township Committee and I believe they have lost sight of their fiscal responsibilities and their ability to lead, manage, and oversee the fire district. Our application explains in some detail the difficulties the township had in obtaining critical financial information for a 3 to 5 year staff operating, including 3 to 5 year staff operating projections and more related to $1.5 million revenue they sought to exceed the cap allowable amounts. Our independent financial experts, Suppleys, Clooney and Company, have done an excellent job trying to put the pieces together for the past few years and 2024, and where the fire district may land in January 1st of 2025. It's not a pretty picture, as you know, but I will leave that to John and Al to talk more about those things. I believe the fire district has lost public support and trust, as evidenced by the 5-1 defeat of their cap referendum and expressed public concerns, which we've heard repeatedly. The township has a proven track record, the infrastructure, leadership, and financial capabilities, and commitment to make improvements to the fire operations upon merger with the existing Township Department of Public Safety. So we'd appreciate your favorable consideration for our application, and we'll be here to answer any questions that you might have. I'll now turn it over to our financial consultants, John and Al, to give you a presentation on their evaluation of this application.
Thank you, Mayor.
Well, I don't hear Al. Al was supposed to go first. I think we did. Al, are you there?
Pardon me?
I think we lost Al. There he is. Are you there?
I can't.
John, why don't you start it up? And
Yeah,
then
I'll start off. Al was going to kind of take us through the application, and then I was going to give you an update, which I know is kind of critical as to what's going on over at the district. So from the financial standpoint, from the beginning of this application process, it's been very difficult, as the mayor pointed out, getting financial information. To set the stage, the district had not even completed their 2022 audit report when we started this way back in July. That has been subsequently filed. The 2023 audit is still not started. I'll get to that in a second with my update. So trying to put together financial data for this has been a real challenge. We were able to get together a 5-year analysis, which is included in your application. And it kind of shows the finances going down over a 5-year period. They did a lot of work on capital improvements, which is good. Their equipment, also in the report, says equipment is good. They've done a great capital program, but the operating costs, okay, are where things are going down. Long story short, when we got done with 23, things were pretty far down surplus-wise. So we went into 24, and their accountant put together a projection for where they thought they would land at the end of 2024. And that projection estimates they will expend their entire budget, not one line item, the entire budget, about $1.2 million, by $300,000. The reasons why this is happening, basically driven by salaries. Okay, as we talked about, they had the defeat of the referendum, and they've been, staffing the way that they think they should be staffing, and that's including putting people on overtime at time and a half. Okay, and that's really the main forces driving this overage. The application talks about the fact that per DLGS and their great work on this, they probably need an additional 4 firefighters. Okay, and that'll be part of what the plan will be going forward. Okay, but unfortunately, they've kind of really, you can't overexpend your budget. Most of the folks on this call understand that your fiscal responsibility is to stay within the budget. They had a referendum that got defeated. Okay, so they were stuck with the original budget that they had, and they've gone far beyond that, far beyond that. I'll jump to my spot in terms of the update. So our firm, their accountant retired September 30th, just to make things a little bit more interesting. And I have capability within my firm to do accounting services. So I asked if they wanted us to jump in and kind of, rate the ship over these last, the next 3 months. So I'm not going to say that anything's going to happen here tonight. The next 3 months to the end of the year. And to that end, this projected $300,000 deficit in the entire budget has to be taken care of. They have to have appropriating power in order to operate and provide fire services over these last 3 months. And working with Tina and the division on this, we came up with a plan. They were going to do an amendment to their budget for 3% or $81,000, which is allowable by statute. I'm happy to report at last night's meeting that resolution was approved. The remaining difference of $200,000 is going to be covered by an emergency, which will be done by the township. The fire district will do a Chapter 159 amendment to give them the appropriating power. This emergency that the township is going to have to do, okay, will be covered by funds that will be turned over at the end of the dissolution of the fire district. So the township will be made whole, but they have to go through the process of appropriating the money so that my team that's in there now can stay within the law and pay the salaries and pay the costs of these last 3 months. So to that end, we've been trying to turn the operations over from the previous accountant to our firm. And unfortunately, I have to report to you today that that's not going well. Okay, we're here on the 8th or 9th now of October, and we still don't have access to the banks. Okay, we still are struggling to get access to their QuickBook accounts and to their payroll accounts. We're working and we're trying to get that done, but it's made it difficult. One of the things I was hoping to do here is give you an update as to where that $300,000 stands. I can't do that. I just got off the phone prior to this meeting with my person that's out in the field, and they can't accurately say, is it going to be too high, too low, et cetera, et cetera. I'm hoping within the next week to have firmer numbers, and I will report them to the township and to the division so that we kind of know where we're going to stand at the end of this. They do have money in reserve for capital, which is restricted to capital purposes and can't be used for operating. And they have some fund balance left over, okay, from the 2023 operations, unaudited numbers, but that's what they have. They have about $400,000 left over. If they produce this deficit of $300,000, that surplus will go down, okay? And my estimate is they'd be left about $182,000 of surplus. Now, it's important to note that because in their budget, okay, they used $344,000 to support the 24 budget. So they're going to have a gap in revenue of about $162,000 if they were to go into 2025, on top of which they would be hiring 4 firefighters. My point being, they can't even stay within the budget. They're going to have to go out to referendum again, which, as the mayor pointed out, is probably not going to succeed. So I do not see how the district can continue. And then just to finish off my remarks, looking at this and the idea of having an encumbrance accounting system and knowing where your budget's going to go, you might be a little bit off. This is way off. Okay, and that's at the core of your fiscal responsibilities is to stay within your budget. And of all the time, I've been doing this for 38 years, and I've never seen this egregious an example of not monitoring your expenditures. So that's kind of where I'm at. I should also point out that the 2023 audit is going to get going. Okay, the auditor contacted me, or my team is in charge now, and I'm hoping to get them the information, say within the next week or so, You will not see a 2023 audited financial statement, I would guess, until sometime in mid-November. Okay, which again is just not good and not acceptable. Finally, I'll say that as my team gets in there, we're dealing with the administration of the fire district. We're going to do our very best to implement some controls over the next 3 months. Make sure that they're only expending what they absolutely need to provide the fire services. At the end of the day, this is all about providing the proper fire services, and we'll make sure that they're doing that and that those expenses are vital to providing that service. Beyond that, I don't know if Al jumped back on or not and whether he has anything to add to it, but that's basically my comments.
Thanks, John. I did hop on the phone here because something is going on with my camera. I can see you guys, but I can't, I guess it's not letting me interact with you. So as the degree of fiscal irresponsibility here, when we went to prepare the application and gather financial data, we had a real tough time getting any cooperation out of the district itself. Only the 2021 audit, which basically over 2 years late, was on file with local government services. So we were in a position where we had to put the schedules together to kind of figure out where the district financials were at this point, at least bring them as current as we could. And then when we started bringing the financial data current, that's when it exposed the situation with this year's budget. We still haven't been able to get accurate numbers as far as where the budget status is at this point, as John had mentioned. So the previous audits did not have a comment having an encumbered system. And without an encumbered system, we don't know what purchases have been made that are awaiting payment. So we don't know what's floating out there yet unprocessed. But at this point, we're pretty sure that the over expenditure of the budget will be in the $300,000 range, if not more. So as part of our application, we do reserve the right to come back to you guys once we have more solid information to ask for an increased cap waiver, because the town otherwise will be in a very difficult situation to handle that in the upcoming 2020-25 budget, providing that we get a favorable vote on the dissolution. We just in the last, despite our efforts to get financial data going back to the end of June, we had not received anything until August 1st. And that was with some real, literally arm twisting. But I feel that we have a good position or a good idea of where we're at financially. So the numbers that are in the application, we're pretty sure that they're accurate. And like John mentioned, the 2023 audit should be done within the next month or so. John had a conversation with the auditors just recently, within the last day or two, and they had not gotten any information at all from the district. So it's in process. When we started the application, the first thing we did to make sure that we weren't in a position where public safety would be jeopardized in any situation. So the Mayor Cantu authorized a study from the DLGS team to go in and do an evaluation of everything from staffing to condition of equipment and everything else. And I don't believe that report has been released yet, but on the data that we've received, they're looking at a staffing level of 17 firefighters. Current roster is 13. So we are going on the assumption that Plainsboro would hire the additional 4 firefighters, and that's also in our application. Other than that, I think we are, everything's in the application, and we're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Al, I want to jump in. I forgot one of my notes here real quick. So you have this situation where there's a lack of controls, internal controls over at the district. One of the other advantages of bringing them under the umbrella of the township is their internal controls are excellent. Okay, Greg Mayers is on the call. He's the CFO there. Anthony Cancro is the administrator. I had the opportunity to work with both of these gentlemen in the past. Their audit reports reflect no comments and recommendations. So if you can bring the operations of the fire department in under the township, they're going to be given the guidelines and the guardrails to kind of keep things in order. And I think that's really important because that's kind of where the failure is, the lack of controls over the district. And that's a key thing that would be resolved by bringing the operations of the fire department into the township. That's all I've got.
In summary, am I on? Can I be heard? This is Mayor Cantu again speaking. I think it's summarized. He summarized it very well. We have a situation that really is out of control from a management standpoint. We have the opportunity to meld that operation into the township operations. The township, as he stated, we're very proud of our financial record, our financial controls. We've had a AAA bond rating in Plainsboro for many, many years, which is not something that's shared by a lot of communities. We also have significant financial strength, and we also have significant professional strength here in the community. So I'm very confident that we'll be able to take this on. It's not going to be without challenges, as was pointed out, but we think we've already begun the process of informally trying to put together plans for how we can have a smooth transition to the township control. We think we have the staff, we have the financial capabilities, and frankly, I don't think there's a lot of choice here. I think this is an operation that is currently clearly out of control, and we need to take these steps in order to bring it back in control and ensure that the people of Plainsboro are provided with not just efficient but effective financial services, as well as protection, fire protection in the community. So we'd appreciate your consideration and a favorable consideration on our request.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a few questions. I'm also going to open it up to the board to see if there are any questions or comments they'd like to raise. One of the items that came to mind, Mr. Swisher, while you were speaking, just had to do with, is it that you're unable to gain access to these through the previous accountant? Like, is that what the holdup is here? Okay.
That is correct.
All right, and I know you're working through those, but if the division can be of help, let us know. We've worked with other municipalities in the past where that was an issue, and had to get some other entities involved to release some of the information and access. So if that would
just for a quick clarification, thank you, number one, Director. And if I need that assistance, I will certainly reach out. You know that I'm not shy. But we did finally make contact and had a good sit down yesterday for a full day. But it's not a simple thing. Okay, transitioning in this is, there's once again the bank accounts, the financial reporting software, and the payroll software are all critical elements of running this operation. And we are on our way. And I would tell you this, that if I do not have everything that I need within, like, say, the next couple of days, early next week, you'll be hearing from me.
Thank you. Okay, good. As far as some of the controls that were discussed, I guess I completely hear and understand that by bringing in the fire operations under the umbrella of the municipality, that the existing township controls will now be kind of placed over that, and there will be checks and balances in place with oversight. I guess right now, as of right now, so what management changes are already being put into place to kind of stem off the tide of over expenditures?
Correct. Okay, so we've had some great, I know Ryan's on the call here, and he put together some guidelines, better guidelines for them, which they're going to implement. And I think that DLGS has already shared with them. Okay, we're under a very big time crunch here. In order to really implement internal controls is going to be a real challenge. But I've had very strong conversations with my team, and Steve Gallagher is our point person, CFO for decades, and he's going to be running the shop over there, and he is already interacting with the administration over the district to make them understand. Again, one of the key things, Director, is the payroll. and the staffing of the shifts, okay, whether they can use per diem people or they have to use full-time. I'll be the first one to tell you that I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think that falls within our purview, but I know that the division has had at least 1 or 2 meetings with them to discuss this. Now, if we see the next payroll, they've had 1 payroll already, which the previous account took care of. The next payroll that we're still experiencing these issues, I'm going to be in contact with division. I can't force them because I don't know exactly what the staffing should be. That's not going to be my role. But if I still see that we have massive overtime, trust me that I'll be in touch with you folks, and then whatever you can do to force compliance, so that we're doing, once again, fire protection. This has been the overriding thing here. We want great fire protection. That's the main thing. But the best way to do that is also there as an issue. So I can tell you this: we will be in direct contact with division if we don't see some of the things that you guys already recommended to them being implemented. With that said, I can't staff the jobs, and that's where the main piece is going to be. Alec brought one other point up earlier about bills floating in. Okay, I'm hoping that's not going to happen. But remember, if you have a department and somebody's out there and they order something and they don't tell us about it, so we have to get compliance from the district, okay, to make sure that they're not bad actors and they report to us. Quick commerce accounting, thing. Before you buy something, you're actually supposed to call up the CFO or send in a requisition to see if money is available. It's quite obvious that that wasn't happening. Okay, so we're trying to get that implemented right now, but the idea of putting in a true requisition system, for instance, over 3 months, is going to be very, very challenging. If not, it's probably not even efficient. We're going to have to get a system in place where they're going to contact us to make sure that the money's available. Then we may have to deal with DLGS to see if the equipment or the repair or whatever is necessary. Okay, once again, that's not going to be the chief financial officer or accountant's responsibility. We're not operational. Okay, but if you see something that's a little bit wonky, perhaps we have to get in touch with division to once again, director, to lock down the expenditures, but still provide the required service.
Yeah.
John, I think it's also important to recognize that the accountant for the district retired October 1st.
We said that already.
Yeah.
And that I understand. So a couple of points there. So one, obviously, the Division of Local Government Services is happy to help with any additional feasibility studies or recommendations. As you know, we do have fire personnel on staff. We also, within the department, have the Division of Fire Safety, right? So it's they're the ones who are actually charged with making sure that there is sufficient fire service provided to all residents across the state of New Jersey. So wherever one's issues begin or end, the other one can pick up.
No, absolutely. I anticipate there being interaction between my staff and DLGS over the course of these, certainly the next couple of weeks as we start to try and gain control. And if we're having any issues doing such, then I'm hopeful that once we're in there, I mean, it's not a big operation at the end of the day compared to the township. And so the folks that I have staffing, two former CFOs actually working on the job. I would like to think within a couple of weeks we should be able to get a handle on it. But if we're seeing non-compliance or pushback or anything like that, we'll be in touch with you guys.
And I think it should be pointed out that we are, as a community, as a township, we have people involved now. We have the individual that this will fall under once we assume full responsibility, assume you approve it at the end of the year, but we have him involved now. That's our Director of Public Safety. He's on the call now, but he is deeply involved in this process, and to the extent that he can, he's exerting oversight and attempting to exercise some control of that process. So we're working with the consultants, and we're working with all the other folks over there to try to bring this thing back under some level of financial control.
And Mayor, was the Director of Public Safety involved with the fire department previously, or is this a fairly new interaction?
He was not involved. He was involved from a communication standpoint, but had no direct control over it. The fire district, as you know, is an independent authority, and basically they were exercising that independent authority absent any controls being exercised by the township. It was more of a communications role before. Now he's going to assume an opportunity to provide management control over the process, assuming this is approved.
Understood. Now, as far as getting some of the over expenditures, especially when it comes to staffing under control, who's currently making the staffing decisions right now for the fire department?
The fire chief and the board of commissioners, I believe.
When you say staffing provisions, we're not talking about the addition of staff. You're talking about the overtime issues that he was talking about. That's being made by the fire chief principally. And as I understand it, he's not has not been provided any oversight from the district in some time. Is that, I think, a fair description?
Yeah, it is the chief. Again, the division has met with the chief and the fire district commissioners to talk about this specific issue and how the staffing should go. So I know there has been that communication, and we're going to see in the coming payroll whether that's going to be complied with or not. And you'll get a report back from me as to whether that's happening. One way or the other, I will reach out.
And we'll remain in the process as well, and increasingly in the process as we move toward the December 31st date. Because we don't want to. I mean, we're going to have enough of a challenge without seeing this thing exasperated by a further lack of control. So we want to stay involved and with our consultants be able to the extent possible bring it back in some level of control.
Understood.
To that point, just I'm more concerned about the next 90 days than January 1, even though there are challenges. But it's this next term between now and the end of the year that we're really concerned about over expenditures and what we might find.
And I think, Mr. Kankar, that's one of my concerns as well. So, which is why I'm asking who's making those decisions, because if it's the same folks who have been making the decisions the entire time, it does not lend confidence that they're going to suddenly switch their decision-making process now, especially when I have, our staff who's been working diligently in trying to make recommendations and offer suggestions as to how to kind of rein in the spending in the immediate interim. And if that is not clearly being followed or at least engaged with our staff on, that creates some level of discomfort for myself and the board members.
I think I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead now.
No, that's okay, Mayor. I mean, I'd love to hear really your thoughts on it, because from
my
our
thoughts are I'm comforted by what's going on with the consultants that we have involved in the process now. They've expressed, I think, clearly that they're trying to exercise to the extent possible those levels of control. And also, I'm comforted by the fact that they said if we're not able to get what we need and those controls in place, they're going to communicate both with us and with you folks to solicit your help in being able to drive that. So we're going to stay, we have been staying right on top of this, and we plan to stay on top of it, because I don't want to see this complicated any more than it is already. So we would look to them to communicate with us, and I was pleased to hear they're going to communicate with you to seek any help that we may need exercising that discipline going forward.
Yeah, and Mayor, just Director, I think I can maybe I could probably bring it home for you. In our previous talk, I said this, and this is going to be a true statement, that knowingly overexpending the budget is an indictable offense. It's right in the law. And I've already instructed my people have already talked to the fire district that we're not paying bills if there's no appropriation. It's that simple. Okay, so they're going to find out very quickly that there's a new way of doing things here. Okay, and the step one is really like we have a budget report. I don't know whether it's worth the paper it's printed on yet, because I haven't locked it back. We're going to tie stuff out, reconcile the banks for September, and then it's our ship, and we kind of know what's going on. And we're going to say, this is the amount of money that's left. Guys, there's no money left. You can't spend anything. We're in a dire situation where salaries and wages are one thing, and we'll hopefully staff the shifts correctly. But the other stuff is going to be only if absolutely needed to perform the function of providing fire services. Simple as that. And I'm telling you right now, I give you my word, bills are, if we don't have an appropriation, the bills are not going to get paid. Okay, simple as that. Eventually they would get paid legally. You'd probably have to pay them, but that's the message that's going to be communicated to the fire district administration.
No, and I appreciate that, Mr. Swisher, and I have full confidence in you. And to the mayor's point, I have full confidence in the experts and professionals that have been brought on board. I guess, Mayor, trying not to mince words or cutting right to the chase, what has been done, I guess, to change up or to lend confidence that the fire leadership is also going to adhere to whatever policies and procedures are being put in place by your professionals, by you and your leadership team, whether that's, the business administrator, whether that is the director of public safety, because we all understand that if staff does not get on board, it will still create a bucking trend. So trying to understand exactly what changes are planned or being implemented with the fire department itself to make sure that the changes that we are all talking about and that are getting moved forward continue on in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that I have a great deal of confidence in both our administrator and in our director of public safety. I think he's been increasingly involved in discussions and exercising the oversight that he can with the professional firefighters. And I am asking every day how it's going. So we're on top of this. And I think he is looking forward to the opportunity to continue to exercise that discipline as we go forward and begin to develop the transition plan for how we transition this. I will say that the professional firefighters seem to be responsive to what he's telling them, and responsive to, I guess, what you can call a change in leadership, that they will be getting more direction, more oversight, and more control. So I see this moving in a positive direction. And frankly, I will tell you that both from my standpoint and from staff's standpoint, our administrator's standpoint, that we're discussing this almost on a daily basis, if not sometimes multiple times during the day. So we're on top of it. I see this I see the light of day, and the light of day is going to be January 1st when we take control of this. And I also see that there's some real opportunities to exert and to develop a better and more efficient system of delivery of services to the community. So I think there's both problems, but there's also real opportunity here for us. And I've had these conversations with both staff and with the direct management of who will be the direct management of this, our director of public safety.
Okay. So Mayor, just so that I understand clearly, so it sounds to me that the direction that you and your leadership are moving in is that the buck will actually stop with the director of public safety when it comes to fire. Is that accurate?
Yes, he will be the professional fire department will report to him.
Okay.
I mean, he will not have he'll have a chief as an intermediary, but that chief will be reporting and responsible to him.
Okay. And then, so I'm
Commissioner-
assuming, yes, go right
I'm
ahead, Mr.
sorry.
Pinkra.
No, yeah, you get it.
So I just want to understand then, as far as who will be making the decisions, right, on overtime, staffing, et cetera, that will be made in conjunction with the director of public safety?
Yes. Once we have, yes. In the meantime, I think he's trying to exercise those controls even without authority.
Right.
But when we gain the authority of oversight, he will be the one that would oversee and approve those. That's right.
Okay.
Commissioner, if you want to hear from the horse's mouth, the chief is on here, and you can hear from him directly. But effectively tomorrow, him and I are going to make an appointment over there to talk to the district about how we go forward. But he's been engaged with them for many, many months. But you might want to hear from him if you want to. He's on the line.
Sure.
Yep. Good afternoon, Director. So yeah, for the last several months, I've been meeting with the fire chief to kind of assess the situation and also looking over their operations and how they manage their personnel. So most recently, within the last couple of months, we've really been looking at managing the staffing, seeing what the needs are of the community, and making sure they're doing it in an efficient and responsible manner. We're kind of in a gray area where my focus has been on the safety of the public and just making suggestions at this time. But should this go through, then I'll obviously have exceptionally more oversight over the personnel and the operations and how they effectively and efficiently utilize their resources.
And so Director Blanchard, two-part question then. So one, have you seen the chief implement any of the suggestions thus far that have been made? And secondly, do you have confidence that he's going to actually start making those necessary changes? Because while I understand that this was a new mechanism, or this will be a new mechanism, and that there was an existing construct in place under the fire district, the leadership was still his. So I'm curious your thoughts as to how you're seeing it going and what's giving you confidence that he's going to be changing the way he operates.
Yeah, absolutely. So him being sort of a new fire chief, about a year and a half under the district, he's kind of slow walked his authority. And what we're doing is making sure he's understanding what his authority is as a fire chief, even within a fire district. And just recently, he's found $18,000 worth of savings over the next 3 months. He's really looking at the books with us, and we're really focusing on what expenditures that we can reduce. He's been very receptive to that. So have the other paid professional firemen as well, fire officers as well. So yeah, he's been definitely open and receptive and proactive to trying to locate savings and readily available to meet with me, to talk with me about any concerns I may have or the township may have.
And I know the proof will be in the pudding when Mr. Swisher takes a look at what the staffing has produced financially. But have you been able to take a look at that at all? Is that coming more in line with some of the suggestions made by the division, or are we still kind of using overtime as our mechanism?
So yeah, I think there's recommendations, and then there's thought processes on what's needed in response to certain fire calls, mutual aid assistance, all those things that come into play with fire response. So we have definitely made assessments of what we could potentially change and again make more efficient. So we've really looked over all the expenditures, and we're finding things that we could consolidate with the police department or the public safety department, and save costs and save money in the long term with that consolidation. So we have a lot of positives that we've been finding, and I think as we move forward, it's going to even be more positive with the combination of the public safety department utilizing fire as well.
So have you been able to notice, is the chief using less overtime and more per diem, or how is that operating?
Yes, yeah, he's definitely in the last month here. He's looked at reducing overtime. He's looked at reducing per diems to the best of his capability, and we're accelerating the meeting process because as we get closer to the end of the year, it becomes more important to have a direct role for my aspect and his aspect based on the findings that we've discovered over the last several months. So we're in the process of reducing that. And again, we're in that gray area where the commissioners have the oversight, but we've definitely taken a proactive approach to making those suggestions and making those changes.
Yeah. No, I can appreciate that. I'm glad to see it's trending in a good direction. I think that's certainly something the division wants to see just from an overall standpoint, and something that the board members were looking to see if there was cooperation with division staff. Mr. Swisher made mention of it, that it is an indictable offense to overexpend. And I think that needs to be something that's really driven home to the chief, because while there may have been a mechanism in place that kind of directed him to do certain things, at the end of the day, we all are well aware that ignorance of the law is no excuse, right? So unfortunately, it always seems to roll uphill. So it's anti-gravity somehow when there's a problem. So to the extent that that is understood, I think is going to be extraordinarily important in moving this all forward. But I really do appreciate the mayor's comments, Director Blanchard, yours as well. The business administrator, I know, used to be in the division at certain points, and so very well aware of how things should be operating, and that's probably why there's a lot of good policies and procedures that are in place in Plainsboro. Worked with Mr. Swisher and his team with a lot of other municipalities, full confidence that this team does the right thing and helps to right the ship. I'm gonna just open it up to see if there are any questions or comments from any other board members that they would like to raise at this time.
Commissioner, first I want to thank you and commend you for the questioning and that you went through. You did a great job of expressing what the board talked about and the board's concern. So thank you for that. That was a superb job. But I just wanted to reinforce that I think that so first some of the statements by the mayor and Mr. Cancro and Mr. Swisher and Director Blanchard got a lot of amens from me as you were talking. So I really appreciate that. But I think it's very important in this to the end of the year time period to communicate to the district that how important this is to play nice in the sandbox and do things that are important and to make sure this transition is good. And I think that it's with the caveat that those who play nice now will be remembered on January 1. And I that Director Blanchard has the right to blow it up if he has to get it right and being that authority. There's nobody's sacred. And so I think again I commend you guys for what you've said, and I think your heart's in the right place. And as the commissioner said, we're here to help you do what you have to do to get this straight. So congratulations and keep up the good work.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, to Mr. Jackson's point, this is a 10-week audition for some folks.
Amen.
Go ahead,
So,
Mr.
Commissioner, I just want to echo Mr. Jackson's comments relative to your summary of the board's concerns, your concerns, staff's concerns in this situation. Spot on. I want to thank the mayor, Mr. Steinberg and Mr. Swisher for their comments and presentation. I thought that was excellent, going right to the heart of the matter and the issues and what needs to be addressed. Very concerned when we hear terms like fiscal irresponsibility and lack of cooperation. It's extremely alarming. Lack of internal controls. It's clearly necessary from my perspective for the municipality to assume control to ensure the proper service to the public, but also for the fiscal integrity. I think Mr. Swisher, the comments you and what the commissioner reiterated about, the indictable offense for the district folks who may not have been following over what appears to be several years of mismanagement, that really should resonate with them and strike home about the importance of the next several months and following the guidelines and the recommendations from staff. And I'm very hopeful, given your comments and those of the mayor, that will fall into place. And looking forward to the next meeting, we're hearing an update on that.
Thank you, Mr. Close. And Mr. Close, thanks for bringing up Mr. Steinberg as well, because he disappeared off my screen. So thank you for making sure that he got his.
Still here by phone.
Yes, thank you. Go right ahead, Mr. Avery.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I do appreciate your summation of our concerns that we talked about earlier. I appreciate the mayor and his team's willingness to deal with this fairly serious issue in town, and the fact that you seem to be willing to rely or call upon the staff expertise at the division is positive in my view in helping through this process. And I wish you the best of luck. And I just want to add that in my career, I was always a very big proponent that there needs to be a penalty for bad behavior. And I hope you you think of that as you go forward. If there's any reason to think about that kind of a situation, but it's it's the public's money and it should be well spent. And that's the final analysis for this board. And I think you're going to make some real improvements in town come January 1, if my colleagues agree. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I don't want to be repetitive. I would just add that, I don't want to be repetitive as to what's been said, although I agree. But I would just add that, please use the division's resources because they are excellent. And the commissioner does an amazing job and has terrific staff. And they are experts in their own right. And I would just hope you would take advantage of that. That's all.
We will, and we have, and we appreciate everything they've done so far for us.
Thank you, Mr. Draco. Okay, so to no longer belabor the point, I know this was a long one. Appreciate that. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the dissolution of the Plainsboro Township Fire District Number 1.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Avery moving, Mr. Draco second. Ms. Suarez?
Yes.
Mr. Draco?
Yes.
Mr. Close?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes, great presentation and best of luck and everything.
Thank you. Thank you for favorable consideration.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you, everybody. Best of luck. Look forward to, I know that this is really just a see you later. I know we'll be in touch on a lot of this, so.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you, folks. Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
You too. And the final item on the agenda today is the proposed 2025 board meeting dates. The meeting dates will just continue to be the second Wednesday of each month as they have been in the past. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve that.
So
I make a
moved.
motion.
Second.
Ms. Rodriguez and Mr. Close. Ms. Suarez?
Yes.
Mr. Draco?
Yes.
Mr. Close?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
And Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Dates are approved.
All right. Just a quick reminder, I hope everybody did take a look at those dates. Just make sure that it's not going to interfere with vacation or holidays or anything that you might be planning. All right, well, that actually concludes our agenda, which is perfect timing because I think I'm going to go into a coughing fit. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Right, did you hear Mr. Jackson? Do I have a second? Mr. Draco, you popped up, so I'm going to make you the second. Ms. Suarez?
Yes.
Mr. Draco?
Yes.
Mr. Close?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes, and feel better, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
And Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks all.
And we will see you
Feel
again
better,
on November
Walter.
13th.
Take care, everyone.
Take care, everyone.